Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Tuesday, June 16th, 2015. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. Glad you've decided to spend some time with us this morning. Got an interesting show planned for you today. Going to start out with the Unbreakables. Two Buckeyes that may not be the most valuable players on the team, but they're two guys, one on offense, one on defense, that we think really need to stay healthy for Ohio State to reach its zenith this season. Then we will be joined by the Dean of Midwest Recruiting, Bill Kurelic, who is hard at work. The one-day position camps have kicked in at Ohio State. He was there on Sunday. He'll be there today. He'll let you know what he saw on Sunday, and he'll let you know what he hopes to see today. Some very interesting prospects on campus that you're going to want to follow. Bill will let you know this as well, but you can follow our camp coverage all day on the message boards and via the Bucknuts 247 Twitter, at Bucknuts 247. So sit back and enjoy a little knowledge about the Unbreakables and then what you might see at camp today here on the Bucknuts Morning 5. I think if one were to sit down and try and figure out the potential MVP on offense and defense for this season, it's not a super difficult exercise. You're going to start on defense. Obviously, it's going to be Joey Bosa, the defensive end, who's arguably the best college football player in the world right now. On offense, you'd either take one of the quarterbacks, maybe Ezekiel Elliott. I think we'd accept an argument for Taylor Decker. But that's not what we're going to chat about today. Today we're going to chat about two guys I just don't think they can afford to lose if they want to have the best possible season they can. Now, to be clear, Ohio State's kind of enjoying an embarrassment of riches here, and I think you can make also a really strong argument that the guys I'm going to mention, if they lose them both, they still could be in contention for the national championship, but that's what we're dealing with here. We've got to come up with creative ways to talk about the team when everyone expects them to win, including myself. So here we go. On offense, the player that I think they cannot afford to lose is tight end Nick Vannett. You're going to sense a theme developing here. And it's more about what's behind him rather than Vannett. I thought Vannett really showed well last year. He was essentially the starter for at least half the season. So we found out the Hireman battled injuries throughout, had some nagging ones that even cropped up again during the national championship run. And of course, he got injured when he's with the Broncos now. So Nick Vannett really steps in as the returning starter. I had one scout tell me he likes him better as a route runner. That was an NFL scout, so I'm really happy with where Nick is, and he's a local guy who stuck with it and has a chance to be in the league next year. Who's going to back him up? It starts the Marcus Ball conversation. Marcus Ball is a beauty in the eye of the beholder prospect. Has shown that he has the talent to contribute and had the talent coming out of high school. He just hasn't adjusted to college life as well as some of the others clearly, and malfeasance has followed him. The idea of relying on Marcus as a full-time starter right now is not something that I find too appetizing. Not to say he couldn't do it, and maybe that's what he needs. Some guys are better as starters, not backups, and need to be counted on. I would hope that Marcus would be that guy if Nick Vannett would go down. Be also really interesting to see what they do behind him. I know there's a freshman coming in named A.J. Alexander that they view as a real passing threat. I'm not sure he has the size or I'm comfortable with a freshman stepping in there at that spot. So Nick Vannett, please stay healthy. On defense, I don't think this one is particularly difficult. As I mentioned, no one will argue who the best player is. But we cannot afford to lose the Diesel, Adolphus Washington, in the middle, if for no other reason. There aren't any really established defensive tackles around him. Tommy Shutt and Joel Hale, I guess you could qualify as your plugger veterans. There's some interest in Donovan Munger as an emerging prospect. Been really bummed out at the development of Michael Hill. I thought as a freshman he would be the next kind of three-technique inside swim guy that could get to the quarterback, and that doesn't look to be the case. Adolphus Washington has to stay healthy. He's got a chance to be a really special player. I'm obviously higher and have been on Adolphus than some others. I think he's got first-round potential. If he plays with a great motor this year and shows he can be healthy for every game and productive, I think he's got a really good chance to sneak into the first round. He's got that combination of size and athleticism that's just so rare for a college prospect. It's the difference between Ohio State and the other teams is the strength and ability on the defensive line, much like the SEC had a while back. So those are two guys we cannot afford to lose, so I'm going to call them the Unbreakables. I don't even know if I'd play them that much in preseason. I'd like to keep them healthy. Let's see what the other guys can do. Nick Vannett, Adolphus Washington, eat your Wheaties. Coming up next, Bill Kurelic on the camp scene.
The backbone of the Buckeyes' summer recruiting efforts are the 3 one-day position camps, as well as Friday Night Lights, which will be held at the end of July. Those 4 camps, along with prospects making unofficial visits to Ohio State, will shape recruiting until the start of fall practice. The one-day position camps started this past Saturday, and the Ohio State staff offered scholarships to several prospects, including Florida wide receiver Kavin Ridley, as well as Ohioans tight end Matt Dotson and wide receiver Jalen Harris. In addition to those prospects, also in action at the Buckeyes camp on Saturday was 2017 5-star safety Isaiah Pryor, as well as Buckeye offensive line commitment Jack Wollenbaugh, who I watched closely and was very, very impressive. He was told by Ed Warner that he dominated on Saturday, and certainly I would agree with that, as Wollenbaugh was outstanding. The Buckeye staff also welcomed in some prospects on unofficial visits over the weekend, including Floridians wide receiver Benjamin Victor and defensive back wide receiver Trayvon Mullen. The second one-day position camp starts this morning at 11 o'clock in the Woody Hayes facility, and there'll be some outstanding prospects in attendance and some that I certainly are going to be keeping a very interested eye on. One of those will be offensive lineman Matt Bockhorst, who will be gunning for an Ohio State scholarship offer today. And then a couple of athletes to keep in mind are Tyrell Asian and Javante Richardson. Also in action today will be 2018 quarterback Brennan Armstrong, and I'll be anxious to see him as well. And then some Buckeye commitments will be at camp today, including Danny Clark, 2017 quarterback commitment, and also expected at Ohio State today is Demario McCall and the previously mentioned Jack Wollenbaugh. But another interesting prospect that will be at Ohio State today, he started his visit to Ohio State at the end of the weekend, that being 4-star defensive tackle target Antoine Jackson, and it all should make for a very interesting day today at Ohio State, and it's a day that Steve Hellwagon and I will have completely covered here on Bucknuts.com. You can follow all the action on our front row message board thread, as well as the Bucknuts 247 Twitter account. As I mentioned, it's going to be another very exciting day for Ohio State recruiting today.